Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday, 16th of May, 2023. We're going to do some market analysis, see what's going on today, see what's gone on in the last few days, and what we think might happen upcoming. As all of you know, that when I do these webinars, I always make sure that you understand the risk disclaimer. Please do take a couple of seconds to read it and understand it. And those of you who are new, my name's Anil, Head of Trader Education, 20 plus years experience in trading just about everything that moves, basically futures, bonds, commodities, Forex. Mainly a technical trader, but latterly an algo trader, so I develop my own algorithms and automated systems. But it always comes back down to, price action, and that's what we're going to kind of cover today. So we're going to look at some different markets, see what's going on today, see what's happened in the last couple of days. We're going to look at our Zenfinex Plus news item, just to see if there's any news coming up, which there is, which we'll talk about shortly. And then I'll show you how to get free access to some of these Zenfinex tools for yourself. Do remember, this is for educational purposes only and not intended as an investment advice. The purpose really is just to show you how I look at charts every single day and how I look for trading opportunities. And it's a systematic, regimented routine that I just follow every single day. And the consistency of that gives me a very good understanding of, where the areas are that I'm going to be looking for trading opportunities and place trades. We are setting up a live trading room as we speak, and those who are interested, please drop us an email, and we'll make sure that you get a free invite for that. So I'm just going to look at some different currencies, look at some charts, do some top-down approach, see what's happening, and then we'll see if we can find anything that's interesting to us. So let's just pull up the charts. But before I pull up the charts, I'm just going to look at what is happening from a news perspective. So if I go to the Zenfinex Economic Insights, this is a pretty cool calendar that I use just to find out what important news items are going to affect us today. And the euro obviously will be affected by the ZEW Economic Sentiment Indicator, which is coming out about 10 o'clock. It's 8:04 in London, so we'll be seeing how that does anything to the euro dollar. Then we have retail sales month on month at 1:30 London time, and year on year. So these will be very interesting numbers to see how the consumer is holding up in the States with the pressures of rising prices, inflation, and higher interest rates. So it'll be a very interesting afternoon to watch that. It also covers the Canadian inflation rates and core inflation rates. So we'll be looking at the USD CAD, the euro, dollar throughout the day, just to see how this news is going to be affecting, different instruments. And before I go much further, please do feel free to ask any questions. If there's any particular charts you'd like me to look at, more than happy to do some analysis. But I'll cover the main currencies and gold and oil and some indexes and see where we go from there. So let's pull up the Zenfinex live chart. What I'm going to do is just have a quick glance at what's going on. So I'm going to look at the hourly bar just to see what's been happening, since midnight. We can see here the FTSE, the 100 UK shares, is starting to show weakness. It's been showing weakness for a little while. I'm going to come back to the FTSE 100 and do the top-down approach. I just want to have a quick glance at what is happening on different currencies. So we can see the indexes are weak at the moment. Let's have a look at the British pound. And the British pound is exhibiting a drop as well. So it's dropped from sort of 25.32 and paused at 24.75. So we're going to look at this drop and see how and why it's done that, and are there any trading opportunities around that. So I will come back to that. I just want to have a look around, see what's going on with other currencies. Sorry. And similar kind of approach, you know, a drop in the last few hours. Remember, this is an hourly chart, and finding some support here, but this may just be temporary. London has just opened a few minutes ago, stock exchange, so there'll be some reaction to that. Let's have a quick look at gold. Just want to make sure we're looking at the right thing. And gold, a lot of people trade gold, so we're going to do some top-down approach on gold as well. It's a level of support here, bang on, and then it's we'll find out what's going on here and where we think it might go after this. What else should we look at? Let's have a look at the NASDAQ. It's been showing quite interesting strength the last 4-5 days, coming off the boil a little bit, like a lot of instruments, whether they be currencies, indexes, or gold, they all seem to be coming off the boil here. So there's obviously some things going on. What we want to do is find out where prices may sort of turn, or where we might be able to find some trading opportunities. So I've had a quick look around, and what I'm going to do is just really go to the higher time frames and just draw some resistance lines. I always do. I don't want to go through the whole process of how I draw these. Look at my previous videos and you'll see how I do that, because I want to keep it quite focused today on where everything is. So we can see here, from a sort of daily perspective, we can see, there's been sort of an upward channel since November, up, down, hit the top of that channel, hit this monthly resistance, weekly resistance, and it's looking like it wants to come back down. But we marked up this level of support, this consolidation area. It moved away from there, created a high, hit its head on the weekly and monthly, and now it's come back into this range. So clearly, for gold perspective, this is a very important area here. If I just zoom in a little bit. And what are we looking for? So look, it's definitely finding some support at this consolidation area. But this long bar is a rejection from previous resistance levels. So we've got to be kind of thinking that it's either going to do one or two things, which it always does and potentially does. It's either going to find support and head back and hit the top of this channel, create new highs. What would be the what would be the impetus for that? It'll be things like retail sales. If they're strong, then the need for investors to look at gold might weaken. Weaken meaning that it might come back down to the bottom of this channel. I'll just draw this channel a little bit more accurately. I'm just sort of doing it from a fast perspective. When I actually start looking for trading opportunities, we start looking at these levels in a bit more of an accurate way. So right now, as we speak, from a daily perspective, not much going on here. It's found this old consolidation level. Often what can happen is at consolidation areas, it will come and revisit and then head back up. But I think what it's doing right now is determining and waiting for news outcomes to see whether the need for holding gold by big investors is still there, or has inflation topped and will start coming down a bit. I mean, we've got a couple of headwinds coming up with the debt ceiling in America, which I'll cover on another video. That will have an impact on gold. Let's have a look at the, by the way, please ask any questions if you have any. and I'll try to cover those, as I see them, basically. Let's have a look at the FTSE 100. So the FTSE 100, as it opened, as we said, just literally a few minutes ago, it's coming off the boil. It's just opened, and we're looking, it's having a go at these highs again. So with this one, actually, I'm going to remove all these lines here, and let's see if we can find some levels here that might be interesting to us. So go to remove lines, we just go to the line itself. In fact, if I press delete, I'll probably get rid of all of them. Great. So from a top-down perspective on the FTSE 100, we can see here that, just bear with me for a second, let's get rid of this program. We can see here that we hit some highs from a daily perspective, and if I go to a weekly perspective, it's hit this level, came back down to a level of support. If I just draw that along here, and the reason why I'm adjusting is because I'm trying to see how many times this price was important to the FTSE 100, and we can see here that it obviously reacted. Yes, it broke through, came back, resisted it, went up, came back down, bounced off it, went through it, tried to retest it, found a spinning wheel there. So obviously this level here is going to be important. It was in the past, and it has been, again. So we've defined a sort of range for the FTSE 100. And if I now drill down to a daily perspective, we can see we're kind of, let's say, in the upper end of this weekly range. Now, I might better draw some fibs on it. That does look like it's retraced from around the 618 level, and depending on the pullback, could be a sign of strength. So let's just see if the fibs are telling us any information here. So 0 line is here. So it broke through, gapped past the 618, came back to retest it, and it's holding. So this is actually a very interesting pattern here, because if we look closely at it, we can see gap, filled the gap, came back to the 618 fib level, and has been really, for the last week or so, not sure which way it wants to go. It rejected, price is low, which means that there's not much selling demand here. Buyers immediately came in at the lower level and bought the FTSE back up again. And now, really, the important levels we need to look at are this level here. Let me just get rid of it. This level here now is going to be important, because what we're really looking to do is see if this range that's been created for the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, for the last week or so, whether it's going to break on the upside and have another go at retesting the previous high, or is it going to break down and then come all the way down to this level. So at the moment, we don't have enough information. I personally will need to see a breakout of this. Now, I know some people like to look at what is happening in the range and then decide from a perspective that because, and I'll need to magnify this to explain what I'm trying to explain here. We can see this sideways range here. So this has created a consolidation area. Prices came down, and if there had been any stops or any liquidity down there, it's completely rejected and come back into there. So this actually could be a sign of strength So the likelihood is that it could actually break on the upside. But that will also be dependent upon news coming out of the States. So we have to be, cautious. But I would think that there's going to be a test of this area here. If it goes back up, it'll come back down to retest this level here, and then either come all the way up to the top of the channel, or it will reject it and come back down to these levels here to retest these levels here. So there is an interesting opportunity here for the FTSE, but you have to be patient. We're looking from a daily perspective. If I go down to 4 hourly, we can see what we mean here. Rejected prices above this yellow line here, which is resistance, literally broke through and rejected it completely, which is a sign of strength. And that strength has continued. And even when prices came back down, they didn't come back to retest this. The only thing I'll say is that this upward momentum is also running out of steam a little bit. So it may stay in this area for a little while, but I suspect that a breakout from the top of 77.98 or 7,800 might be a good area to see if that will take us all the way back up to retest those highs. Certainly this level here would be worth watching. Let's draw an object in there. So we can see here there's quite a bit of rejection here. Let's just make that red, because if we get to that level, we really want to be thinking about either exiting our long position or looking for some reversals. Oops, that's a bit too bright here. Let's soften that down a bit. Right, so we're starting to get a bit of an idea here on the FTSE. We've just concluded that prices hit a level. Let me just pan out a little bit so I can start giving you the explanation here. So we have a weekly range from the top to the bottom. Prices have stalled at 618 on the fib level, broke out of it, but couldn't get past the previous high, and has slowly started to grind back down to this 618 level, which is a consolidation level. And now we're waiting for a breakout from this level here. It's showing signs of strength from a 4 hourly perspective. And if it does break out of there, we've got a couple of targets that we can aim for. For example, if it did break out, we could take half our positions off here. We could move our stops to break even, and then look to head to see if it goes and breaks the the previous high. Of course, that's subject to strength being shown, but it is definitely exhibiting some strength here. If it doesn't and it breaks down here, then we've got a couple of levels that we need to be conscious of. And if it does break down, then it'll find some support here, some support here, and some support around here. So, there are a couple of ways to play this. What else should we look at? I'm actually really interested in the US 100, the NASDAQ. If I start from a sort of top-down approach on this, if I go back a little bit further, very similar, to the other index that we just looked at, the FTSE. Let me get rid of all the lines first, and then we'll work from there. Let's see if we can get rid of these lines here. So let's just have a look at, from a weekly perspective, in the same way that we do the top down, we build ourselves a range, a trading range. Where are we in this trading range from a weekly perspective? What are the areas that we need to look at from a daily perspective? Now we're on the daily chart. And the first thing I see immediately is this upward channel. And we see some resistance here, and we see some resistance here. So what we can see here, that really this key level of 13,715 is going to be important, because what it's done, excuse me, it's broken through this level here to create a level of support. What I mean by that is, from a daily perspective, markets came down, didn't quite come down and retest this low here, and even when it tried again, it couldn't do that. So that's an indication that this level is being well supported. It broke out of this range here, came back to retest it, and we've said many times on these videos, it will retest, never chase it, wait for the retest. We got the retest, and it's basically back on its way up to this particular high here. Probably a little bit lower, because if I look at this a bit closely, or closer, I should say, we can see here this 2-bar reversal is quite important, because what happened is that prices came down, went to retest it, but it couldn't get past this from a daily perspective. So even when it came back and retested it, it only stayed there for a very short period of time and then rejected it. So this is a very, very important level. We're exactly at that level right now. So we can see that we're coming up to some pretty important resistance. So had you taken, a break out of here or the retest, this would be a nice place to exit, or to tighten up your stops, or go to break even, and then take this all the way up to the top of the channel, maybe even retest, the previous high. So that is interesting. It's showing strength almost on a consistent basis since it broke through from this, and I'll draw a block on it so you can see that. So this was the consolidation area. Trying to break through, trying to break out this range at a couple of points, then eventually did with some quite vigor. Couldn't get past this level here, came back, retested for a few more days, and then it started its journey up. It's coming up to this important level here. Let's just, we've highlighted here. Why is it important? Because this downward trend paused, tried to go back up, but got stuck at this point. And we know it's important because it retested it, tried to break through, and immediately reversed. The question we have to ask ourselves now is this going to hold? Is this level going to hold, or is this an opportunity to take it back down to the bottom of this channel? So we have to watch how price behaves around this level here, and decide whether to take a short, or if it does break through there, we'll wait for a retest because it's on its journey back up to this levels here. Those of you who are interested, I will be opening up a trading room where we'll take some live trades. We can't do it in a sort of YouTube forum for all sorts of different reasons, but we will have our own trading room which you can join up, and we'll actually place trades, and and you'll be able to watch how my trades perform. Okay, what else do we want to look at? So we've looked at the Nasdaq, we looked at the FTSE, we looked at gold. Let's have a quick look at what's happening to the pound, because on an hourly perspective, the pound kind of has been rising, and then it hit this level here, came back down, and again we've got this 2-bar reversal here, which are very important points. Whenever we get like 2 bars, try to push up, and immediately came back down, right? It broke through it, it's now retested it, Let's just move that across a little bit. Retested it and showing some strength. So this downward bar, whilst it's trying to capture people to take them on the short side, it's literally come back to this point here and retraced immediately from there. Now it looks like it might want to try to break these areas here. The next important level is going to be here. I have a question which I will see if I can answer. Okay, please help me look at USD JPY and USD Swiss franc. I'm happy to do that. Just give me 1 second and I will do that next. So we can see here from an hourly perspective, remember, the higher the time frame, the more information it actually has given us in terms of where is it heading towards. So if we look at this price action here, although there's lots of lines, they're from shorter time frames, came back down, found support on its way up, and now it's looking for a pause. So this long bar will also be important, because is this the beginning of a consolidation from a daily perspective, or is it heading back up here? I will look at the USD JPY. Let's do that on a different chart. Let's try a fresh chart and we'll do a top down on USD JPY. Let's make that the same so it's clearer. I always use the white screens. It seems to be clearer on video. So let's start from a weekly perspective. We know, don't we, that the JPY has just been right, the price of the dollar against the JPY has been rising, almost relentlessly from a weekly perspective. If I can put the monthly in, I think that's a pretty well high, all-time high. So we'll put a line here. We'll go to the weekly, and we can definitely see this level of resistance. We can also see from a weekly perspective that this level is important, right? So now we're starting to frame our idea from a weekly perspective. I can also, let me do that on the daily, because we'll be able to pick that up on the daily a bit more accurately. Just bear with me a second. So let's draw some daily resistance levels. Again, so what happened here? Whilst we're interested in price here, it's always important to look back and see how prices reacted at certain levels, right? So we saw price came down, bounce up, found support, broke through it, resistance, came back down to this weekly, ground its way up, and literally turned exactly at the same points here. It did it again. So we've got 3 points where every time it approached this level, it resisted it, right? So prices came back down. The counter to that argument is that on this leg, it didn't go down as far as here, right? So that is giving us an indication. Let me get rid of this line here. That's giving me an indication. Overall, there's momentum up from a daily perspective, and we can see that with the channel here too. I will get rid of some of these lines because sometimes lines can start getting a bit messy. Right, so from a daily perspective, we can see prices came back down, hit a level of support, tried to come back down to retest it, it didn't. Found a level, came back down, couldn't get lower than this point here. So our mindset is strength. Depending on whether you want to call it strength in dollar or weakness, it doesn't matter. The chart is pointing upwards. As soon as it hit this level here at 137.72, it retraced, but it maintained this upward channel. So we have an interesting area here. The person that asked me the question, let me just see who that was. Mr. McDonald, I think it is. Are you from what time perspective? Are you looking at a longer term perspective, or are you looking at a short term perspective? Because from a daily perspective, right, there is resistance at this level here, right? And there's support here, the support at the bottom of the channel, and resistance here. We got some additional resistance here. So depending on your time frame that you want to look at, and that would be really helpful if you tell me that, you know, I'm trading from an hourly perspective or from a 4-hourly perspective, I can give you a much better answer. But from my perspective, prices may, because look what's happened here. So it came down, couldn't get lower than this point here. It's been creating new higher highs, and the lows have not got lower than there. So there's still, technically speaking, until this level here breaks, there's still strength. And that strength, whilst there's some important resistance at 137.72, if it breaks it, then there's a, you know, a rapid run either to the top of the channel or even to the top of this level here to take this out. So we're currently stuck on here. So let's see what the answer was. Intraday perspective, great, cool. So what I'll do now, I'll drill down. So from a daily perspective, we can see for the last 3 days, there's been strength. It's broken some highs from a daily perspective. So if we now go down to 4-hourly, we can see that prices have probably hit a 618 level on the fib. So if I pull a fib here, it turned exactly at the 618, right? So this is an important level that often what happens with these fib levels, right? So prices after a long move down will come and revisit the 618 and decide what it's going to do next. So the two patterns that I look for when I'm hitting 618 is I measure the length of this, and then I look to see where the retrace happens. So I believe, and can you see this one-to-one? So this leg, in fact, let me just do it again here. So this distance from there to there, it will often pull back and then go back and retest this. So what I think could happen, right, and remember, this is for my own opinion, it could formulate this particular pattern here. And therefore, it gives you an indication. And I'm going to drill down further in a minute. I just want to make sure that we get an overall perspective. We can see that it hits 618. I think it will come down, if it's going to do an ABC pattern, around the 38 fib level. It might even come and test the bottom of this channel here. And then I believe it will continue on its path here. So the area that you need to watch is this one-to-one, this 38.2. Does it hold or does it break? If it holds and starts its journey up, then there is a very good chance that it will continue breaking this and retest this. And often with fibs, it will actually go to a 27% of this downward range. I do a lot more. I can do a whole video on just fib trading, nothing else. And this is a very popular pattern, the ABC pattern, off a fib level, wait for a pullback, take it on its continuation upwards. So it'll be interesting to see that. So if you want to take a screenshot and then see how that does, then we can look at it later. Now, if I want to go down to even smaller time frames, and when you mean intraday, you're looking at sort of 5 minutes, sometimes even smaller time frames. So let's now drill down a little bit further. Given that we have a slightly longer term perspective, we can see that even from an hourly perspective, this 50% level is going to be important to us, right? So what's happened is it went up, hit the 618, and what it might do from an hourly perspective is come and test this. And if you look here, it turned here And there's a chance that it will turn from an intraday perspective at this level here. Let me just delete this. So it may actually come back, retest this, hit the 50% fib level. If that holds and there is strength, right, then you can take it back up to the 618. But this price action here is also giving us some indications, right, that what's happened is from this level here, prices broke through this level here, came back, retested it. So from a short perspective, right, sorry about all the lines, but they do make a little bit of sense. I hope that makes sense to you too. So these are the levels of support, right? If I just go back out a little bit, we'll see them a bit more clearer. So we can see this level is important, came back down, couldn't get above it, broke through it, and what it might do is come and retest this level here for this ABC pattern, or it might come a little bit down to here before it starts its ABC pattern. But I see generally strength. Does that help on the, do you want me to drill down even further to, a 1 minute time frame, which I can actually, absolutely do for you? Would you like me to drill down even further than the 1 hour? I try not to look too closely to less than 1 hour, but I do understand people's trading styles can be different. I mean, if I go to a 5 minute time frame, right? So if our bias at the moment is that we think it's going to bounce off some levels from a strength perspective, where do we want to be looking to take that? So if we just look at it from a 5 minute perspective, which is tough, by the way, if you're trading this kind of time frame, it's not that easy. So we can see here, we're back to this 618 level. It's hit it, kissed it, come back down. And now it has to touch one of these levels here, right? It has to, maybe not this yellow, because that's more of an ABC pattern that I was trying to demonstrate there. But there's a good chance that it will find some level of support at this level here. And we're right in the middle of the 618 and the 50 fib levels, right smack bang in the middle. Remember, from a longer term perspective, even from an hourly perspective, we're thinking on the upside. Even though it's displaying resistance, we're looking to see if these levels are going to be tested before it continues going up. Thanks a lot. Helps see. Yeah, I mean, I hope, this is just my opinion. Can I ask you your opinion? Do you think it's bullish or bearish from your perspective? I'd love to hear what you have to think, and then we can. You see, what I try to do when I do analysis, I try to look at both sides. I try to look at, what is the argument for a bullish perspective and what is the argument for a bearish perspective. And then I kind of do a mental tot up and say, look, on the balance of probability, there's more bullish than bearish. So I kind of use that kind of approach. And it's something that, it's worth considering for yourself. Because the problem with trading is that you can become biased on the side and the direction of your trade, which you want to try to avoid because you always want to stay objective, right? You want to be able to say, look, even though, I might be long, I need to make sure I understand what other signs, other signals are telling me that it's actually not bullish, that it's actually going down. Does that make sense, Mr. McDonald? I hope that does. And I think you wanted me to look at one more. Let me see if I can do it quickly because we're already 40 minutes in and I've tried to shorten these webinars a little bit. Let's see if I can do a quick, I might have to add that. So let's go to USD Swiss franc, I think was the request. Let's have a quick look at the chart. I'm going to make it more visible for you guys, make it white. And if I look at that, we can see this still, the same sort of, from an hourly perspective, we can see this channel up. I better go a little bit higher first. So let's just not break our rules here. Right, so what we can see from a weekly perspective is we can see the frame for this particular currency, right? We can see that it's within this range. When we go down to a daily perspective, we can see that this weekly range is where we're at the moment, which is actually quite a critical point. When you come to these important levels, particularly the longer term perspective, they are more likely to hold. So they're not as weak as, let's say, a 5-minute support resistance line. We can see here that from a daily perspective, back in October, it hit this level, bounced away, couldn't come back down to get rid of it, and it's been continuing on its way up, and it couldn't get as high as one of our weekly resistance lines. So we're trapped in this range. And from a daily perspective, we can see that we have some resistance here, right? Not only is the resistance relevant here, it's also relevant here, it's also relevant here, it's also relevant here, here, ignored it there. So we can see that this is going to be an important level for me to watch. Obviously, it's in a downward pattern. So if I now zoom out a little bit and see what else we can see. So we can see here, oops, a daisy, it's down here actually. So we can see that it's found this level of support. I think I'd better just double check that that line is still accurate. Yeah, I'm actually going to move that up a little bit. Okay, and then I'll go back to the daily, and we can see we're almost came to the same level, bounced off it. We're in the bearish channel. Looks like we found a little bit of support. From a daily perspective, we can draw our consolidation area here. From a daily perspective, and don't worry, I will drill down to the shorter time frames. So if I now go to 4-hourly, I might just make that range a little bit smaller here. So we're consolidating from a 4-hourly perspective since the 13th of April. And it hasn't been able to break out of this. So if we do break out, right, the problem we have is this weekly level of support. So although we're still bearish, right, we got to make sure for us to get down to the bottom of this channel that it breaks this important level. Now, what I would do with this one is, it's obvious, right? It keeps trying to grind down, found a little bit of strength, but no sooner had it hit this level, we marked it from previous, came down, came down, came down, came down, and now it's trying to find some support at this level here. So this is a bit of a tricky one. Because the downward channel has hit a long-term level of support, is the next move to go back up to the top of the channel, to the top of this resistance level. So even though we're in a downward channel, my concern is that from a weekly perspective, daily perspective, that at 87.96, there's some level of support. So it needs a lot of energy to break through this. And if it does, it's going to have another level that it needs to watch out for here. I can see another question here. Thanks. Yeah, and I have a bullish perspective, and there is news on the USD. I think I will wait. Yeah, perfect. That's makes a lot of logical sense. Okay, good. If anybody else has any questions, feel free to do that. But I'm in the last sort of 15 minutes of our webinar, so I do want to just go back to the presentation. So I think we've looked at all these plus a couple of others. And I really want to look at a free tool that Zenfinex offer, which is the Zenfinex Plus tools. It's free, so do go click on the link or whatever, and have a look at the portal. Let's have a quick look at the portal. And as Mr. McDonald rightly said, we have some important news coming out. UK time 1:30. I think he mentioned 3:30. So I guess he's a little bit further east from me. They need to be observed. So this portal has quite a detailed economic insight. What we're able to do is we're able to look at how previous news events and what impact it had. For example, the month-on-month retail sales from last month, April the 14th, the news, so previous was 0.2, the forecast was 0.9, it went to -1, so it's almost the same as forecast, slightly worse, and therefore the impact on the euro dollar was negative. I wonder if I can make it relevant to Mr. McDonald. I think let's put it on the USD Swiss. So the impact on the Swissy was obviously straight afterwards. If I go to a 15-minute after the news event, you can see a lot of volatility was created, 57 odd pips, and you can see that the actual was worse than the forecast, which made this particular currency fall in the next 15 minutes. And from a 4-hourly perspective, you can see that it continued going down, but this volatility is something that you have to watch out for. And we can see how it continued going down. And remember, we were just looking at the Swiss franc against the US dollar, and we were bearish, weren't we? We were looking at the charts and they were grinding all the way down. So not only did it, after the news, for the 4 hours afterwards, continue to fall, but it also, from chart perspective, continued to fall as well, didn't it? Because there's the news, and let me just see if I can get that down to a daily perspective. So we can see here how the news impacted it. So this was March, around here. So it continued falling down, hit the weekly support, and then has been consolidating. So it's probably waiting for this new news to come out as well. And so unfortunately, I've only had enough time really to show you the economic insights. I will do sort of specific webinars for all these different tools we have in Zenfinex, but I think I want to make sure that I don't go too much over time. And if there's any more questions, I'll answer them, but I'm kind of coming up to the end of this webinar. I've tried to keep them to around 45, 50 minutes so that you can get some value out of this. Is there any more questions? And I'll give you a minute to ask them, and I will try to answer them as best I can. In the meantime, while you're writing a question, if you have any, I'll have a look at featured ideas, which is a tool that looks for certain chart patterns, and again, you can see if they marry up with your ideas or whether they're worth taking. With technical views, they go a little bit more into detail into just a bit of time to come up. I apologize, there seems to be a bit of a delay on this. Right, so the gentleman was looking at the USD Swiss franc. So from a USD Swiss franc, right, we were, and in fact, I think they've got the similar kind of levels of support. It's under some moving averages, so they're saying may fall between 15 to 30 pips, daily and weekly charts are also bearish. So these tools are kind of confirming what we've just gone through ourselves, but we've gone through them from a sort of top-down approach. But you do have this tool to help you as well. It shows you some support and resistance levels. And it adds things like RSI to show there's weakness there, and some Bollinger Bands, which is this pink shaded area. And this narrowing the Bollinger Band is also, they call it the Bollinger Band squeeze, is also an indication of a breakout at some point. So it'd be interesting to watch this. Okay, guys, I think I've covered everything I want to cover today. I will be back on Tuesday and we'll go through some a bit more perhaps on the tools and show you how to use them and see how they can help you with your own trading. If you have any questions in the meantime, don't hesitate to email me if you want to, and I'm more than happy to sort of answer any questions or help you along with your trading journey. I wish you a great trading day and afternoon. Watch out for the news, and we'll speak on Tuesday. Thank you.